All right. All right. Good to go. So the purpose of this class is just to share with you the way I put together a pricing packet. So we have a whole class, and it's really probably more like 5 hours of classes on how to do a correct PTA or a price trend analysis. We'll talk briefly about that, but that's not, we don't really have the time to go through all of that here, but we'll talk briefly about the PTA. But more than the PTA, this class, I want to show you what I do to present the pricing packet to the seller. So a little bit of a backstory here, especially since, you know, Kim, you're brand new with us, and Pam, you're still new with us, and so maybe you haven't heard this before, and if you have, well, you know, we'll go over it again anyway. But with Weichert, we do a 2-step listing process. So step number 1 is when we go out to the property, we have our getting to know you brochure that's in the seller packets you can pick up here at the office, or it's online on Weichert One. And you bring that, all you really got to do is bring that packet to the step 1. That's it. And in that packet is your list of questions you want to ask. And it's questions like, you know, how soon are you looking to move? During this listing process, what's the most important thing to you? And my favorite question in there is, what are you looking for out of a real estate agent or company that you hire to help you sell your home? So by asking those kind of questions, they're giving you the answers to the test, which is step 2, your actual listing presentation. Okay. So on the listing presentation, let me grab it here. We've got our big binder. So show that, right? We got our big binder. We got our whole presentation here and all that good stuff. That's a whole other class in itself right there, right? But when you start off the listing presentation, that one of the first things you want to do is say, hey guys, by the way, I have this pricing packet. And you'll have a packet that looks like a couple of these here I'm going to show you. But you just say, look, I got your pricing packet right here. And I literally pick it up and show it to them and say, I've got the pricing right here. But we're going to go over the marketing information and the marketing plan first. And then after that, we're going to go through the pricing plan. All right. So that's kind of how you present that to start with. The reason you do that is because if you don't, they're going to be sitting there the whole time saying, when is he going to talk about pricing? All right, I don't care about your marketing. I want to know price. I want to know price. And so by just simply acknowledging it, I have it, but we're not going to go over it till after the marketing, then it kind of puts their mind at ease and they can relax and listen to what you have to say. And I've had people that say, well, that's great, Aaron, but let's just get right into the pricing package. And I say, no, because the pricing has everything to do with the marketing that I'm going to do for you. And I need you to understand what I'm going to do marketing wise to help you get this price. So part of the pricing is my marketing plan. So don't ever let people push you into that corner. They usually are pretty understanding. If you just show them that I got the information, I just want to go over the plan first, they usually are fine. There's always that 5–10% that want to push back and push back and push back, but typically they're fine with that. Okay, so that's kind of how we get to this point. So then after we go through the marketing package, we've talked about what we're going to do to help them sell the home, what we're all about, who we are as a person, who we are as a company, talking about all of that good stuff. Then we finish off, before you get to the pricing, you finish off the presentation by saying, so after looking at the marketing plan, do you feel that I'm the best agent to help represent you in this sale? And you want to get some sort of acknowledgement. It could be just a nod of the head. Hopefully we can get a verbal, yes, I think that was great. I think you're the best agent we've seen. But you need some sort of acknowledgement of that. The reason we're doing that is to make sure that they're going to pick their agent based on who's got the best marketing plan, who's got the best personality, who's got the best everything to help them sell their home. Because we don't want them picking on just price. Because you and I do not determine the price. I have never determined the price for a property, ever. I'm only interpreting the market and showing them what the market will bear for their house. Now, there's different ways to do that, and there can be different interpretations of that, but it's never what I think the home is worth. It's my opinion of what the market is saying their home is worth. Okay, so those are really important little tips and tricks to make sure they understand the right framework here. This isn't my opinion of your price, it's my interpretation of what the market is saying. All right. So anyway, they pick you based on marketing first. And let's just say they say, no, I think Joe Jones over there, he had the better marketing plan. He's awesome. Well, all right. Well, what did Joe Jones have that I don't have? And then I would want to keep talking about that. But eventually, if they say Joe is better, we think he's by far the better agent. Well, I'm out. You know, if Joe's the better agent, then pick him. That's what you'll say. Now, the good thing is, by being with Weichert and using our doors presentation, you won't hear that. You just won't. I can't remember the last time. I have heard it before. I don't think I've heard it since I've been with Weichert, but I have heard that before. But it's very, very rare that somebody's like, yeah, I think Joe had a much better marketing plan than you did. So you just won't hear that. So have confidence in what your plan is, and we'll talk more about the marketing plan stuff later. But before you get to any kind of pricing, it's important that you have their acknowledgement that you are the right agent for them, because that then also says that they trust your opinion of what the market's saying. So all of that is a precursor to before we even get into the packet. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. I want to show you a couple of different ideas. These are just what I do. There are different ways to do this, but I think there's a couple of key points to have when you're putting together a marketing packet, or I'm sorry, a pricing packet. One thing would be to always have some sort of cover sheet. All right. So have some sort of cover sheet, and it can look like this. Most of mine look like this, and I'll show you why they look like this in a minute. But they don't have to. If you're more creative than I am, this is because this is kind of how it comes out on a certain report that I'll show you how to get. But you can design your own if you want to create something funny, depending on who your client is. I've had a friend that was a pretty darn good artist, and he would just draw like a quick drawing of their house. Like he could sketch it out in like 30 seconds. He could sketch out a cute little drawing of their house, and he would just put that on the front. I thought that was amazing. That was amazing. I don't have that talent, but if I did, I would absolutely steal that idea and use it. Because people just fall over themselves. Like, you drew my house? You don't even have it listed yet, you know? So something like that, if you can think of anything creative, do that. And it is this business to me on getting referrals and getting business. It's all about these little things. So do we have to do a cover sheet? No, we don't. But why not? Why not make it a little bit more professional, right? So I typically do something like this that's a little bit more just, professional looking than it is creative. But let your mind go on that. Don't fall into the box that I'm talking about here, and you feel free to make it whatever you will. Especially when I'm dealing with buyers and I have like a buyer packet, I very much like to be more creative with the cover page on that, where I'd say, hey, the Jones family, weekend of finding a home, or whatever. That wasn't a good example, but you find some sort of creative thing to put on there, and it's cute and people like it. All right. So a cover sheet, I think, matters. I've seen it matter to people. Number two would be to bind the report. Don't just staple it together. Stapling it together is fine. Nothing wrong with it. But we have the binding machine here in the office. It's free for you to use. So just simply bind it together. Use a little plastic cover sheet, a big thick piece of paper on the back that puts it together, and then you bind it up together. So those couple little things, I think, make a big difference for people. I continually hear the verbal, man, this is really nice. I've never seen an agent do this before. And it's good to hear. It also just shows how low the expectation is for real estate agents. So but some of those little things matter. Okay, so those are two tips. The third tip I would say is make the pricing packet thicker than you think it should be. All right, and I don't think I know either of you two well enough to know your personalities on how you might react to this, but I'm more of a picture guy. Okay, I would prefer all the data to be in a couple of nice little graphs and charts that I can visually see it, and I'm good. I'm satisfied with that. Okay, that's what the market says. I'm good to go. And then my father-in-law, for instance, is a former insurance vice president, and so he's all about these numbers and these graphs, and like I'm bored after reading the first paragraph, and he'll read 50 pages of just a whole bunch of numbers. You know, drives me crazy, but it's just different personality types. So you guys might be on one end of that spectrum or the other, but what I have found is that if you have both, you have some quick summaries of things, and then you also have the data and the work to show it, then every personality type is satisfied. And I would say even myself, who is more of a picture book kind of guy, I do appreciate when I see people's work. Even though I might not read through 50 pages of analysis on a house, I still can look at that and be like, oh, wow, she really did her work, you know? So I still appreciate it, even if I'm not the type that would actually read through it. All right, so make it thicker than you think. All right, okay, so what do we want to put into our pricing packet? So the number one thing would be our PTA, or price trend analysis. Again, with Weichert, we're not doing CMAs, we're not doing competitive or comparative market analysis, we're doing PTAs, price trend analysis. Okay, can you guys see the PTA on my screen now, or do I need to reshare? Okay, let me see here.
We still see the cover page.
All right, how about now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So our PTA, this is, you know, what it looks like. And again, we're not going to go through this in terrible amounts of detail on how to price the homes here, but you fill out all your data. On page 2 here, you fill out all your comparables. And then page 3 looks something like this. Okay, so you see a nice little quick chart, and it gives you an actual number of what something might be looking like. All right, so that's the way when you print your PTA from this Excel sheet, this is the page that prints. So this is kind of your quick little summary. All right, so certainly your PTA should go into your pricing packet. Where do you want to put it? Well, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that it might be at the end, so you could flip to it, and that's kind of the quick summary, the final chapter of how everything comes together. I kind of like to put it, though, like page 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere in there, and then all my other just minutia and data and stuff, I just kind of throw behind it for someone else to look at. The way I like to present it, I don't like to present a 50-page pricing packet. I like to present it in 3 or 4 or 5 pages, and then the rest of it is there. That might be 50 pages, but that's just there for further discussion, or hey, well, what about this comp? And then you can pull that out real quick and you can show them that comp. But I don't want to go through each page, just, you know, 4 or 5 pages worth. So typically this might be my final summary type. Okay, any quick questions on the PTA? All right. All right, so certainly the PTA should go in there. All right, I'm going to flip back to here. Can you see that screen now? This cover page again? Okay, cool. All right, so like I said, this is typically what I'll put on the cover page. And then you might have something like this, a little summary, and I'll show you in a second how where this report's coming from. It's got all these different facts and stats about the property history. This is the stuff like my father-in-law will eat up. Like he'll spend days staring at this, and I'm just rolling my eyes, saying, "What are we doing? Let's move." You know? But all this is like public data, and it looks really cool. Kind of see some different graphs. Market activity for 28715 shows you know, what the different price ranges look like around the area. How long do you think this would take for us to put this together? Like if we did all these graphs and charts, how long do you think this would take us?
A long time.
Yeah, longer than I'm willing to spend. Right? Like I need to I'm gonna try to finish it today. I don't know if I will, but I've got to finish our end of June stats to go over in a video to send out to you guys to use with your clients. And that's maybe 4 or 5 different pages of some data and stats. And it's not hard. It just takes me a little bit of time. And to put all this kind of stuff together in the way they do it would take way too long for each property that you're pricing out. But this is coming from just a simple source. So I didn't do any of this work, right? And so by just putting this data into the packet, it's not everything we'll put in, but it's some of what we'll put in. When you pull that up, man, it looks like, gosh, Aaron spent hours and hours and hours putting this thing together. And, you know, when you're starting out, your PTAs and your pricing might take you an hour or two. That's not abnormal. But once you're more used to it, it usually takes me 20 to 30 minutes to kind of get through it. Depends on the property. Some are easier than others. But it doesn't really take more than 20, 30 minutes of staring at the screen and entering some data before it becomes clear in my head, well, clearly this home is worth X. So it won't take you hours and hours once you get some practice on it. But by printing some of this stuff out, which is kind of helpful to look at, but it doesn't really take you any time, okay? So where do we get that? Let me go here to the MLS. You can see the MLS here?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. So I just want to make sure that sharing things sometimes messes me up. All right, so under resources, I don't think either of you are in the MLS yet, right?
Not yet.
I am.
You are? Okay, great, great. So when you're on the MLS here on the resources button, and Kim, or Pam too, I don't expect you guys memorize this right from the get-go, so no worries if you gotta call back or say, hey, how do we get there again? But this is where it is. Under resources, you have all these different things that we sometimes will use in the MLS. The 2 things we're going to focus on today for the pricing packet are the Realtor's Property Resource and SAM. So it's kind of easy because these are things that are in parentheses, but the Statistical Analysis Module, or I just like to call it SAM, right? So that report comes from RPR. All right, so let's go to RPR, take a look. I'll show you what that looks like. It is something that is, you know, none of us like paying these dues and these fees for the MLS, and you got to pay this, you got to pay that. None of us like paying it, but there are a lot of technological advantages, and this is one of them. Part of your dues goes towards RPR. All right, so it's a free service to you as far as it's part of your dues. Okay. So to pull up like an RPR report on a property, we just put it in here. Let's just say it's at the one we were looking at there, 36 Pinedale Road in Candler. And click on that. And so it gives us the list price. It gives us an RVM, which is just similar to like a Zestimate, a Zillow estimate, slash not accurate. Okay, so you don't take the RVM for anything more than just it's a computer algorithm idea of what it might be worth, just like a Zestimate is. It's not an accurate number. It's just a computer algorithm that shoots it out. Zillow's done well with that because in some places like Charlotte or Atlanta or, you know, where they have big subdivisions, they can get very accurate because then it's very easy to price homes. Well, we all chose to work here where it's not so easy to price homes because a lot of different factors. So they're not very accurate around here, okay? So once we're here, we can just simply do a create a report. This is how I got some of that data, but you can also use this for buyers that want to know more about a property, more about an area. You can just hit create a report. Get this to pull up here. So you got property report, seller's report. mini property report, school report. You can print whatever you want off for different reasons. In this case, we're looking for the seller, so I do the seller. Now, as you'll see, since I've done this before, it has saved some of my preferences, which is I don't like to use any of their comparables. All right, I'm not going to use them. I don't want them in my packet because they're not accurate. I'm going to show my own comparables. They're not accurate. So I would recommend just clicking off of those items so they don't come with the report. If they do come with the report, you can just simply take them out, delete them. But I just default that way so I don't see them. All right. Then all we got to do is hit run report. It does take a couple minutes for it to pull up. When it does, you get a little doorbell that rings that tells you it's ready to go. But this has all those, like those pages I was just showing you. It has all of that done for you, specifically for that property, and it's that easy. So this is one big, quick little item that I think you should have with every single pricing packet that you put together, because it is kind of cool data. It's interesting. It does help price the home sometimes, but it is more. It doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't fit my personality. I don't really care about some of that little data, but for some people they really do. So it's worth throwing in the packet. All right, while that's pulling up, we'll talk about what else should be in the pricing packet. We'll talk about SAM reports in a minute, but also you should have maybe the tax card. You can pull the Realist tax card. Let's go back to the MLS here. Realist tax search is under resources here as well. And it's a free service, part of your dues as well. It is public records. It's not directly from the Register of Deeds, but it is pulling from the Register of Deeds. They have agreements with the government to pull data. So it is accurate. You don't have to worry about that. It is accurate. So we just go into Realist and pull the data. I think it's always good to pull that tax card out. It's really helpful when you're pricing a home too, because you can see what they paid for the house. You can see what mortgages they took out. It's all public record. So it doesn't tell you if they paid the mortgage off or they paid it off early. It won't tell you that, but it will say, like if I'm going into a house and I'm looking at it thinking, this house is clearly probably worth about $250, and I pull a tax card before going in and I see that they bought it for $275 last year, we might have a problem. Whereas if I pull a tax card and I see they bought it for $130 back in 1995 and they got a mortgage for $50,000 then, I don't see any other mortgages, they probably don't owe anything on the house, right? So it can kind of phrase or define the conversation a little bit and how you want to speak to someone if you know you're in for maybe a little bit more of a battle on pricing than not. So that can be very helpful. I would always, other than bringing that step one packet, I would always print off the tax card and just bring that with me as well. That's the other thing I would bring to the step one. All right, so printing that out, putting that in the packet is good. Let's go back to the reports. There's our doorbell. Anybody's dog barking in the back? My dog always does at the house when I use that. So he's like, ah! It's crazy. All right, so it pulls up like this, right? You guys can see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are ways, and I still haven't done it. I don't know why, just because I'm lazy, I guess. But there are ways that you can change this data because it defaults to what you put in there. Like it has our fax number twice. I don't know why we need that. But there are ways that you can address some of those, okay? In this case, it actually has our listing picture because it is pulling new data. So it's a nice picture. Sometimes the pictures aren't nice. Sometimes they're Google views or whatever. But if it looks like that, then I would probably just leave that picture. But when you're on step one, you typically take a couple of pictures, not for marketing, but just for your own resources. And so you could take a picture of the front of the house and just put that on here. People like seeing their house on your stuff. So just putting that up in there real quick. All right, I'll show you how I adjust that in a minute. Let me download it and then I'll show you how to do that in a second. All right, good to go. All right, so just like we saw before, it's got all the data in here like we had seen before, right? In this case, it's got some of those newer pictures. And again, like I said, you could use any page you want. You could delete some pages you don't want. But all that data was created in that 2 minutes or so, and there for you to throw in your packet.
Nice.
All right. Yeah, pretty helpful. All right, so let me show you real quick. I'm gonna see, how do I get there? All right, I'm just gonna jump over here and then we'll see if you guys can see it or not in a second. Come on. My computer's always slow on Zoom because I guess it's using too much. All right, does that pull back up on your screen? Yeah, okay, good. Good. All right, so now that I'm in here, I have, and I would recommend buying this if you want. If not, a lot of our agents just send them to me and ask me to adjust them. That's fine. But it's just a simple PDF editor. It's like $100 to buy it. I think they want it to be every year, but I've only paid it one time. They've never asked me to repay. But it's just a simple PDF. I'm sorry?
Is it Adobe?
It is. Yeah, but it's just a simple PDF editor, and then any PDF I pull up, anything, I can edit it, change it, add pictures, whatever. So I just simply hit add PDF, and then I can go in here. I can change. I usually like to change this font. I don't know, just personal preference. I don't like that font. So our font for Weichert is like Helvetica New, kinda. And so I like to just kind of switch it to that because it's more of what our office uses. And then kind of switch everything to middle. So you guys get it, but I can change anything I want on the PDF. So that's how I would go in here then. I could change, delete these fax numbers. Boom, done, add whatever you want. And even this stuff, like I don't want this in here if my value is going to be 230. So I might just delete either the whole page, or I might just go in here and adjust this. Now I don't want to lie. I don't want to say RVM said it was this when it wasn't. So I would delete all the RVM stuff, but I would just say current estimated value. Let's just say 229.9, and I might say recommended list price, whatever, 234.9, whatever, something like that, right? And then you're just playing around with the form and deleting things, moving things. So that's how I do that. That's how I adjust those PDFs. All right. Any questions on that? Yeah, oftentimes our agents will ask me just to, hey, can you just change the value in here real quick? No problem. Doesn't take long. All right, so in our pricing packet right now, we have our cover page. We have the packet of RPR stuff. We have our PTA in there, right? We have our tax card or realist tax report in there. The other thing that I think is very helpful for the conversations is using some live data and stats. We try to give you some of this stuff on a weekly basis in sales meetings. I'm not always good about a weekly basis, but sometimes the data doesn't change much and it's not worth going over. But right now it is. Right now it's incredibly important. So like some of this stuff here, like we've been going over, might be good to put in. Maybe it's good for your client to show, maybe it's not. Like in this case, we're looking at price range variables, so over 400,000, under 400,000, and you could show that kind of data depending on what you're talking about. These numbers are actually have dropped quite a bit lately. So you could throw some quick data like that together, throw that in there. That's always helpful. And another way to do that automatically is through the SAM tool. So again, the SAM is in the MLS under resources. And then we have our statistical analysis module, which sounds like I'm much smarter than I am. But we pull SAM up, and SAM is a way just to get some quick stats and data that we can throw into our pricing packet. I really like SAM tool a lot because you can play around with it and really get a lot of good information. Now, one of the things as this is pulling up, be careful at what stats you put into your packet. Only use the stats that support the point you're trying to make. And goodness gracious, I'm not trying to get political with anything right now, but I just call this the CNN model. Like, only show data and stats that support your way of thinking, okay? And Fox News does the same thing. So, you know, the Fox News, CNN way of thinking, where we're only going to show one side, we're only going to show data that supports what we want to see. It works because they're not lying, they're not misspeaking, but they aren't telling you the full truth. Now, I'm not saying we're not telling our sellers the full truth, but I am saying sometimes the data looks a little weird here and you're like, I can't really explain that. So then don't, just leave it off and only show the data that supports what you're trying to say, okay? So with using the SAM tool, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. So let's say we want to look at, rarely do you want to use the whole MLS. I mean, rarely, but let's just say we wanted to look at Buncombe County, but then we also wanted to, oh, let me go back there. I want to look at single family homes in Buncombe County. And then I wanted to go to look at just, I don't know, let's just say, well, we were looking at that Pinedale house. So let's just say 28715, Candler area, right? Dang it, I missed that. The computer's trying to be helpful, but it's not. All right, and then we're going to say single family homes as well. So now we have Candler 28715, single family homes, and we have Buncombe County in the green line, single family homes. All right, you could go deeper than that. You could say we also want to look at, let's just say Biltmore Lake, which is subdivision, sort of in Candler, sort of in Asheville. And let's just say we wanted to look at all that data at the same time. Now we know Biltmore Lake is a little bit pricier, so let's just take that off so we can look at this data. And we can look at median sales price. We can quickly switch over to average sales price. Look at our price per square foot. Look at our month supply on the market. So let's just kind of play this out. We want to look at I like using median. Median is a better, more accurate way to look at things, I think, than average, but I'm not a statistician, that's just my experience. But when we look at median sales price in both Buncombe County in the green and Candler in the blue, you see kind of the same trend through the last few years, right? You do see a little bit of a little slip here in Candler. Don't really know why, but you see that. We look at month supply, look at that, right? So this is what we've been seeing here in 2020, and this would be a slide I would definitely print. You just print right here, print it off, and I would print these in color because they do have the color graphs. So it's it's hard to tell green from blue, and when it's gray and slightly gray, So I would print these in color. But you see, you can show a seller, look, I mean, we were still in a seller's market at a 4 in 2019, but once this COVID thing happened, everybody's not putting their home on the market. Look at this. So we're just tanking, the market's tanking on month supply. And this is including all single family homes. If we wanted to go look at, let's change this to, let's just say 110 to 563. Oh, that was that. Okay, and then we go to Buncombe County. All right, we can change those, but you see the point. Like when you switch these out, now you have even different numbers because you're looking at different price ranges, right? So you could do that. You could say Buncombe County at this price, Buncombe County at that price. You know, you can mess with it as much as you want. And say we want to go back and go all price ranges. Okay. So then we want to look at days on market, median days on market. Well, how long will it take to sell my house? Well, can't guarantee you anything, but the median days on market in Candler is 21 days right now. The average is 51. So pretty big difference, right? In 51 and 21. Well, what's the difference? Well, the average is taking into account everybody that's overpriced. So if you'd like to overprice your home, we might be much higher than even 51 days. But if you want to price the home correctly and where it should sell, realistically looking at 21 days is the median, what it would take to sell your house. So quick data, you know, even being new agents to the market, you can print all this stuff out in 20 minutes and you look like a super expert in the market. You have all of this put together. So I would take all of this, I would take 3 or 4 of these graphs, or again, depending on who your client is. If I was going to go talk to my father-in-law about selling his house, which I will never do, I will never sell his house. We gladly refer it. I have in the past. I've referred him several times, but I'm never going to sell his house. Good luck to that agent. But for someone like him, honestly, I'd probably print every one of these out, because knowing him the way I do, if I printed out 3 or 4 of these, he'd say, yeah, but what about closed sales? What about shows to pending? Like, he would ask all those questions, and I'd just be like, really? It has no effect, but here, you know. So putting all that stuff in the packet, I think makes sense, or as much as you feel is necessary to make your point. All right, I'm not seeing anything on here that gives me the example of something like maybe I wouldn't use. I don't know, maybe this is somewhat of an example. This doesn't concern me at all, but I think prices are continuing to rise, but for some reason in this graph, the price per square foot in Candler is sloping off a bit. When I look at the average, it's still kind of sloping off. So that's just kind of interesting. I don't really know why that's there, but that's probably a slide I would just leave off, because it doesn't really prove my point, which is what I know to be true, that the prices are increasing in Candler right now. So that's an example of something. Maybe I just wouldn't show that slide, you know? All right, so we've got all that stuff. The last things that I would put into the packet would be your comparables themselves, all right? So just as a quick little example, let's just say, what I mean by your comparables are the ones that you used for your PTA. Those should be your best comparables anyway. So let's just say, for giggles here, I don't know. This isn't how you find the best comparables, but let's just say these were the 19 homes that we used. Let's just say, right? I would select them all and I would print them off in the client view. I'd put them in the client full, like just as an example here, you print to PDF, and using that Adobe PDF tool, I can easily take a PDF and then add that PDF to another one. So even if you had to email this to somebody, like right now we're doing that more than we used to, because sometimes we just don't meet with people. With that PDF option, we could take these comps and add them to the other PDF, so that's all in one email to send them, which is kind of nice. But yeah, so you take all of these comparables, and of course we didn't select these perfectly, but let's just say these were the comparables. And then I would print all of these off. In this case, it's 19 pages, and now all that goes in there. So now between all that stuff, I don't know where we are, but probably close to 40 pages or so in that packet. And so now it's a nice little thick packet that we can use. And it looks like a ton of work. The only other thing that I usually don't add it, honestly, but we have agents that do, and I think it's a really good idea, where sometimes you have like some pieces of paper you write notes on, and you're adding them, subtracting, for comparables and saying, well, this one's 1,800 square feet, our property's 1,600 square feet, so we had to add this amount, and like all this the chicken scratch that you're doing. I think that's great. I usually don't like to do that because I don't always remember or know what I wrote, and I don't want somebody to see something that could get me in trouble or something. So I think you got to be careful with that. But if you truly do just have a add and subtract on here or something, that would be a separate piece of paper with notes that you were making. That's great as well. The more work you show, the better, probably, in general. So that packaging all that together into one of these packets and then printing it off and then binding it and having that available. I'm telling you right now, other agents aren't doing that. Hopefully in our office they are. I try to find them. If they're not doing it, I try to catch them not doing it. But it doesn't take much time. You're doing this anyway. You're going to look at all this stuff anyway, or you should be, to try to help price the home. And it just takes a little extra effort to print it off, pack it up, and be ready to go. All right. So the other thing is on the packets, if you wanted to add something about, well, if you did these repairs, then I think the price might be X. If you decide not to do those repairs, the price might be Y. Like, that's fine too. Like, every situation is different. But my point is, in having this class, is to share that I think this is how you present the price to someone. Because then it also isn't you just sitting down with a notepad and pen and telling them, yeah, I searched, I looked hard at your home and I think it's worth $229. And they're thinking, gosh, I think it's worth $239. Well, then it's just you versus them. You say $229, they say $239. Then it's, it's just a question. You have nothing to back that up. Most people don't trust you that much to begin with anyway. So if you can show them and not tell them, you show them, here's the packet, here's the work I did. You show me why it's $239, and then you put it right back on them. So I think it's really important to bring that data with you, especially if you're in for a battle. And again, one of the questions on step 1 is to try to find out how much they want to get for their home. I don't like asking them that directly about it, so we'll talk about that later. But basically, I like to ask them more like, how much do you still owe on the house? And they say, well, we only owe $230,000, but we need to get a whole lot more than that. Oh, like, how much more? Well, we're hoping to get $450 out of the house. Okay, like they'll usually get to that point without asking directly how much do you want to get. But you do need to be aware that sometimes people won't want to give you that number no matter what you say, because they just feel like by giving you that 450 number, you're automatically going to come in at 450. And some agents might do that. And I also say sometimes it cuts our own legs off because it truly might be worth 450. And then we come back with a price that's 450 and they're like, well, yeah, because that's what I said. So sometimes I kind of like it when I don't know exactly what they want, but I do like to get a ballpark figure, because if they're saying 450 and I'm looking at the comp saying 250, well, goodness gracious, we're going to have a problem, or even if it's 450 and I'm seeing 425, I know I'm going to be in for a battle. Like, I'm going to have to prove, and then I might add even more data to it, or certainly just go in with that right attitude of how to convince them of what the market's truly saying. Okay. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would recommend doing to do a pricing packet. Put all that together. It should be 40+ pages long by the time you do all of that with all your different comps and data and information. And again, on the SAM tool, I mean, you use as much or as little as you want. I usually use 2 or 3 pages, and then get right to the PTA in the packet. I have cover page, 2 or 3 of these kind of data points, maybe like some of these, maybe 1 page or something like this. Then I get right to the PTA, and then everything else I put behind it. This is another good one to put into maybe all pricing packets if you're going to talk about absorption rate, because most people don't know what that is. And maybe you guys don't either. I'm just kind of assuming, but it's good to know when you talk about buyer's market, seller's market, this is what we're talking about. And it's, you guys know how we come up with that. I just want to make sure I'm not running over it.
The number
Maybe
of
go
homes- Go ahead.
ahead, Kim. I was just going to say maybe go over it again just so I'm clear.
Yeah. So this little page is good to print out so you can show them. But how we get the absorption rate is by simply, let's go ahead and do one. Let's go to the MLS. We do a search, and just for giggles, let's say we're looking at 28715 again. So Candler area, we would take a look and see how many matches we have in the bottom left here. It says 52 matches. All right, and then we write down 52, and then we see how many went under contract in the last 30 days using that same criteria, which in this case is just the city, and we have 33. So I'm gonna just tell you right now, that's an incredibly strong seller's market, right? So all we simply do is we take a calculator out here and we say 52 divided by 33, we're at a 1.57 market absorption rate for Candler right now, right? So 1.5 is right here, right? So it's a strong seller's market. If it's a 4 or a 3, then that's still a good market, but it's, you know, it's still a seller's market, but it's a little bit more normal. 5 or a 6 is fine. Let's mess with this real quick and see. So if we go with same area, but we go with 500 plus price range, now we have 6 under contract and 18 on the market. So we have 18 divided by 6, so we're at a 3, right? So even that's really, really good, especially for 500 plus. But we doubled our market absorption rate because of price. Generally, the higher priced homes take a little bit longer, right? But still, we're at a 3, which is an insanely low number for a 500 plus. Okay, so that's how we come up with that. So it's easy to do your own data and stats on that too as you go through that, you know, and if you want to do some of your own market absorption rates for your client, that's how you would do that. Okay. All right. Any other questions on the packets?
I just think it's going to take some practice of doing it a few times to.
Yeah. Well, and that's just the packet itself, not even the PTA.
Yeah.
Which is really where the thinking comes in on how to accurately price the home, trying to find the right comps. And, you know, of course, we've got the classes, and we'll continue to do classes on how to do that. But I think it is important to spend time on how you present those numbers to them, and hopefully this packet idea will be helpful to you. All right. Well, good. All right. Well, let's end there. I'll stop recording here, and if y'all have any other questions, just let me know, and we'll get going. But like you said, Pam, it will